Hiya, good morning. My name is Owen. Welcome to the cupboard. In this video, I'm going to be going over everything that I read in July. So I read 6 books in July, and I started off with The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. This is one of those books that I've been meaning to get to for absolutely ages, and I don't know how I've managed it, but I hadn't been spoiled at all. I didn't really know anything going into it, apart from like the general idea. So it was something I was really looking forward to. I had some high expectations, but I think for the most part my expectations were met. For anybody that doesn't know, I'll just do a quick recap. Basically, our main character is Katniss. Every year in the world that she lives in, names are picked out at random in each of the districts, that's each of the places where everybody lives. And those names all are put into an arena and they all have to fight to the death. And also these names are young people and children. These games are an effort to keep control of the people. They're also an intimidation tactic to keep people in line, and so people are afraid to combat anything that feels unfair or feels unjust. This is a dystopian novel, as you can imagine, and I think I can understand that at the time that this was released, it was a really unique story. I was quite surprised by the actual writing of this book. It's really simple. It is a YA book, but it's really simple and it's really easy to read. In saying that, I was really taken aback at how simple it is. And I suppose I was expecting a little bit more from a book that has become so popular, but also on the other hand, because the prose is simple, it's really accessible to people that maybe don't read all of the time, or for younger readers that are just sort of starting to understand like how to read bigger novels. So in that sense, I think that's a strong thing. Books like this that are that kind of accessible are really good to have because, of course, then more people can get into reading. But I think maybe I should have anticipated that a bit more because of how popular the book is. And I'm not saying that it was bad in any sense, I think I was just surprised. I will say that I did really enjoy this book. I want to make that clear. I'm not by any means saying that this is a bad book. And the first one in particular, so I read the first and the second, but I won't talk about the second one, obviously, because it'll be spoilers. Yeah, but in the first one, the pacing, I mean, it really picked up once we were actually in the games. It felt like maybe even the first half was a bit meandery. I do think in the first book it was necessary, like we're getting to know the characters and we're really understanding who the people are that we're following and why this is happening and what the society looks like. We're doing a lot of world building. But in the second book in particular, I felt like the first like half of it, we were just faffing about doing nothing. It feels like the author was like building up or like getting into the writing and then maybe it needed a bit more of an edit. Like I'm not a professional. I'm not going to talk about like this like I know what I'm talking about, but there's something in the pacing that felt a bit off to me. I think the other thing I'd like to mention is the way Katniss thinks about things. So she's set up to be this quite clever, quite perceptive character in the sense that she pays attention and she was understanding what Heyman, her mentor, was trying to tell her while she was in the games and stuff like that. But when it comes to like interactions, especially with Peeta, or I think I felt it the most when she was talking to Peeta. She seemed to not do a lot of thinking. For example, something would happen and she would come to one conclusion and just decide that is the truth. And she wouldn't think about it at all. Like there was no consideration to what if I'm wrong. And I felt, and I know that she's young, so she would be sort of naive in that sense, but it felt a bit much. It felt like she wasn't thinking because the plot would be better if she didn't consider other options, not that she wasn't thinking because she was young or because she was in a stressful situation or stuff like that. That is just a little thing. Like I'm being really nitpicky. It's just something I noticed while I was reading. But apart from that, I think it was really good. And especially since mentioning the pacing thing, I think it works better in the first book because once we did get to the Hunger Games section, I was like, oh, we're finally picking up and it's getting exciting and stuff like that. But then it makes you consider as a reader, where is my enjoyment coming from? The book is forcing you to ask questions. Those questions are putting you in the same place as the viewers of the Hunger Games in the capital and in the districts. You're forced to consider where your enjoyment is coming from, and is it from the violence? Is it from the fighting? Is it where is it from? And should it be from those places? The fact that the book is written so simply and it's still touching on all of these quite big ideas and making them like digestible, making them easier to understand. And I think that in itself is a really good thing that it does. So like I said, I read the first one and the second one this month, but I won't touch on the second one. I still read them both really quickly, so it's not anything massively bad. Like they're very readable books. So yes, I enjoyed them, and I think everybody should read them at some point if you like dystopian fiction. It's a proper staple in the genre, I think, by now. So yeah, that's it. That is The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. The next book I read was The Knife of Never Letting Go by Patrick Ness. However, I don't have it anymore because I got it out of the library, but I have since got, this is the third one. So I'm just going to hold this up just now so I have something to do with my hands. Yeah, so I read the first one and the second one. The second one is The Ask and the Answer. I must admit, these are also dystopian fiction novels. And I must admit, I enjoyed the Patrick Ness ones more than The Hunger Games. And that is probably a bold statement in this day and age, but there's so much Patrick. Oh, I just really like Patrick Ness. I think the thing is, I have much more of a connection to Patrick Ness. I read him when I was young, so I think I was just always going to enjoy them more. So The Knife of Never Letting Go is also sci-fi. They're not on Earth. So essentially, humans have left Earth and they've expanded out into the universe. We're on a different planet. Our main character lives in this tiny little town called Prentice Town. We first meet him and he's on the outskirts. He's on the outskirts of this town that he lives in, and it's like a swampy area. And he's got a dog. He and this dog are walking back into town, and we find out really quickly that he really doesn't like this dog, but it was a gift, and he can't get rid of him. So the other thing that's really significant in this book is that everybody has noise, and noise in this book is thoughts. Everybody can hear everybody else's thoughts. The other important thing is, as he walks into town, we discover that this is a town of all men. There are no women anywhere, and also our main character, his name is Todd, he is the youngest in town, and he is the last to become a man. So in this town, in the society that he's living in, becoming a man is less of an idea and more of like a specific time, a specific age that is rumored that something happens, something changes, and you become a man. But he doesn't know exactly what that is or what's going to happen. He just knows that he doesn't receive respect. People still talk to him like a child, and he wants nothing more than to become a man and to have his place in the world and to know where he stands. This is a massive plot line, a massive thread. It goes all the way through the book. It's one of the questions, it's one of the like themes, yeah, is what makes a man. And that is, I think, very interesting. And I think Patrick Ness has a lot more subtlety than Suzanne Collins. I think maybe there was just a lot more going on. I suppose that you can understand in the premise that the worlds in Patrick Ness's books are just so much more expansive. Even right at the start, we're in this little tiny town and there's a tiny little population, and we discover that obviously there will be no more children. He is the last child. He's the last person to become a man, and that opens up so many questions about what is going on, what is happening, what is the fate of this community. And then, of course, on top of it, there are more questions. Why can we hear everybody's thoughts? What's happening with this town? And the first interaction that Todd has is with the preacher or the religious figure of the town. He's come out into the swamp where nobody goes. That is like one of the first things we learn. Nobody ever goes into the swamp, and this religious figure of the town, he is there. And Todd is surprised and he's taken aback. There's also quite a prevalent religious conversation through these, and I do find those religious themes really interesting because it's not black and white. It's not one or the other. It's not that gods are real or God is not. It's absolutely fascinating what he does with rhetoric and how people are forced into believing things. Patrick Ness does a lot about exploring power struggles within these little societies and how you come to believe what you believe and what you were told versus what you feel or know intrinsically. And we see through Todd how he's viewing all of these things and what he believes to be true, and how the information that he's been given through his entire life, how that has shaped him into who he is today. And I think it's just a wonderful view into such a human story, even though we're off, in space, we're on a different planet. It's at its heart such a such a human story, and I really, really enjoyed it. The end of book one as well, it was such a shock, but not in a the rug was pulled out from under you kind of shock. Like, it was a proper satisfying shock. It wasn't out of nowhere, but it was still so expected. I think he does a lot of expectation subversion. He does it in such a way that when it is revealed, you think, of course that happened, because it was built up by all of the things that happened before it, but you didn't realize that those things were significant. So yeah, that was book one and book two, The Knife of Never Letting Go and The Asking the Answer. Like I say, I've got book three, Monsters of Men, which I'm yet to read, but I will get there because they're wonderful, wonderful books. I think I'll probably read the third Hunger Games first, but yes. I've got two more books left, and they're both modern classics, according to, I think it's Penguin? Yeah, they're both from the Penguin collection of modern classics. The first one is Dandelions by Yasunari Kawabata. I randomly just picked these up. I think it's really good for me to just pick up things that I don't know about, because I do tend to go off of other people's recommendations, and sometimes then you get stuck in a hole of just reading this, everybody reading the same things all the time. So these ones were an exercise in reading out of my comfort zone. So this book, I think, was an unfortunate one to pick up first, because I was really confused, because I didn't know anything about this book going in. I just took it at face value, and I expected that it was finished. I mean, that's what you do when you pick up a book. You expect that it's a finished product. So the actual premise is really interesting. We're following the family of someone who's been recently put in a mental institution. So we're following her mother and her fiance. So this woman, her name is Aneko, and her condition is that she sometimes loses the ability to see things and people, but not everything. So if a person is in the room, she might just not see the person, but she can see the rest of the room. That's set up in itself on the back of the book. I mean, it sounds really good. They express it as a condition of madness. This is why she's in this mental institution. This is where she needs to go, because it makes her, I mean, quite understandably, really scared and really uncomfortable when it's often people that she loves disappears just in front of her eyes. She sees them disappear. And of course, she gets really distressed in this. We start out the book and we enter into the scene, and it's her mother and her fiance walking back from leaving her at the institution, and they're having this long, in-depth conversation about many, many things, but mostly like madness as a concept, and also wondering if this is the right thing for her. Her fiance wanted to get married, and he thought that that would help her, that this would solve her condition, that he could be there and nurse her back to health, or so he says. And he expresses this to her mother. Her mother, on the other hand, wants her in this institution, and reasonably so. She wants her to get better. She wants her to get the help that she needs. This first conversation, you get a lot of what those two characters think, and their ability to disagree but not be angry at one another. I think that's quite good. It's quite a healthy example of how people that are family or are almost family, how they can communicate in such a way that is not harmful. You often get these dramatized accounts of conversations like this. This one felt really down to earth and considered. However, the first conversation, they literally go from the institution down the road and stop in town. But we don't see any of the town. Just from there to the end of the road, that conversation is 70 pages long. And I understand, I mean, this is a short book. That's like half of it. And that in itself, isn't entirely unusual. I think I was just surprised because this is a classic. But like I say, I don't read many classics, so I didn't really have a massive gauge on what to expect. This book does do a lot of things, and in such a small space as well. It's only like, I don't know, it's less than 200 pages. The thing about this that I should have known, or would have made the reading experience a more enjoyable one, is this is the last works of this author, and it is unfinished. That's why it feels that way. The way that this book is now in this shape, I don't think was ever supposed to be published. And it was maybe an opening chapter, maybe a chapter that was supposed to exist somewhere else in the middle of something. So it's difficult to truly review it because it's not a finished product, and it's perhaps not even been edited to an extent that the author would have been happy with. I can see that there is some good in this, and there is an awful lot of conversation around, you know, men and women and how women are treated in this place and time and in relation to madness or mental illness. And I think the other noteworthy thing is Ineko's mother is never given a name. She's only ever referred to as Ineko's mother, and her fiance also calls her mother. I think there is something there. I think that was done on purpose. She's sort of the pivotal character in this story because we don't actually hear from Ineko that much. We see little snapshots of her past after we get past that 70-page conversation, but it's mostly a conversation between her mother and her fiance. And the fact that this character has such a big page presence, is never given a name, I think is notable. She's a woman who takes up just as much space as the fiance, but the fiance is given a name. We also talk about her husband who had died previously, and we get his past and what happened to him as Ineko's father, but we know his name as well. We know everybody's names except Ineko's mother. And I definitely think that is on purpose. You know, in this conversation, they do talk a lot about a woman's place and what marriage meant to Ineko's mother and how Ineko's fiance views it and his views on love and her views on love. And like I say, this whole book really is just a accumulation of snapshots of their opinions and how they feel about deeper topics. So like I said at the beginning, there is good in this. And I think that my experience with it was clouded by my confusion because I spent the whole time trying to work out what was going on. I got to the end and I was like, I don't understand what I'm supposed to take away from this. And I had to sit with it for a couple of days because I was like, surely there's something, surely I'm missing something. And of course I was, because it's unfinished. And when I actually did look at it, and I understood that the points that the author was trying to make will be more hidden because this isn't the accumulation of the story. This isn't where the story was supposed to finish. So everything that I'm supposed to get out of it will be under the surface. I need to be paying a little bit more attention. And when I did that, then I understood it a little bit more, I feel. But I think it's better than I felt it was. I think I was just a little bit too confused by my own misunderstanding of what to expect. The last thing I read this month was this, The Outsider by Albert Camus. I have heard about him before. I haven't read him before. I think most people know The Myth of Sisyphus by now. And I think I would like to get round to reading that at some point. But I'd never actually read any of his works before, and I was very pleasantly surprised. I think being surprised that classics are good is a bad thing. that shows a little bit of me, my own ignorance, I think. But I really enjoyed this. It was a really good little book, and I really want to go and find some more of his work because this was the only one that was on the shelf. But I really enjoyed this. They're so efficient, I think, in what he manages to accomplish in such a short amount of time. Like, I think, well, the writing is quite small, but it's not, I mean, it's not that long at all, really. I think in relation to the other one, this one feels, well, finished, first of all, but feels more like a proper short story. This one has chapters, which is nice. I find continuous books quite difficult to read because, you know, there's no natural breaking off point. So I think my enjoyment of this one is a little bit based on the actual structure and a little bit based on the writing style. I really enjoyed the way that this was written. Again, it's quite simple. Well, not simple in the same sense that Hunger Games felt simple. It's simple as in straightforward, but it's not lesser. I don't know how to explain this particularly well. I think what it is the writing style is very much connected to the main character. The main character in this is very disengaged. He's apathetic to generally anything, but he's quite logical in it. He's a really intriguing character in himself. Like, in the first page, his mother dies, and he doesn't know when. He says, "Mother died today, or maybe yesterday, I don't know." That's the first line. And it's immediately grabs your attention. It's like, what do you mean you don't know? What is going on? And the further you get into the first chapter, you know, he's going to the home where his mother lived, and he feels that he needs to prove to the people that are there working at the home that he cared about his mother, or that his decision to put her in this home wasn't a selfish one, even though no one is accusing him of that. He goes to his mother's funeral at the home, and he meets the people that were living with her and also the man that she was proposed to marry in this home at the end of her life had decided to get engaged again. And while he's at the home, it's the custom, it seems, that the people who love the person who has died watches over them overnight in a coffin before they bury the body the next day. So we're with him as he's sitting overnight in this home, and he's surrounded by the old people that were living with his mother, and he is again very disengaged. He's not remarkably emotional. He seems to intellectualize everything that he's feeling, or he spends a lot of time trying to interrogate what is going on in his own head. He's a generally mild person. He sits there, he takes a coffee when one is offered to him, and he falls asleep. And the next morning he walks down to bury his mother, and then he goes home, and that is it. In the next few chapters, he meets this woman that he knew before, and they start up a relationship just a day after he'd buried his mother. And when you see it through his eyes, it's sort of a coping mechanism, or that's what he tells himself. And we also get to see the people. He lives in a block of flats, and we get to see the people who live around them. And with all these people, we get a very clear view of who they are in such a small amount of time. I think that's the true, the skill in this writing is everyone you meet feels like a real person and feels like the author has really thought through every single point in their life that has led them to this point. The characterization and the nuance as well, they're not caricatures, they're not stereotypical. The nuance specifically in the character, the old man who lives below him, who has a dog, and what happens to that character, the arc of that character, is really brilliant. It's on its face kind of hypocritical, but that's how human beings are. You know, he feels real. He feels like the lonely old man downstairs who has a beef with his dog for no reason. Like you believe it. As the story goes on, we follow the people that we meet, and I think I underestimated how connected everybody was and how connected the story would become, and actually just where the story went at all. I just absolutely did not expect where this was going to go. And for, again, like I said, such a short book, it does an awful lot of work. I would absolutely recommend this. It's a really fascinating little book. And like I said, I'm going to try and pick up some more stuff by him because I've had a really good time. I think that's it. That's everything I read in July. 6 books in total. Thank you for being here. If you have any suggestions, please leave them in the comment. Please subscribe if you've got this far, and I hope you have a nice day.